Imagine waking up one day to find your entire town empty. No neighbors. No cars. No voices. Just silence. This isn't the plot of a horror movie. It's real. There's a place in Australia where homes were left behind, businesses were abandoned, and streets that were once filled with life are now completely deserted. But why? What could drive an entire town to suddenly disappear? A disaster? A curse? Or something much more disturbing? This is the eerie story of Australia's most infamous ghost town, a place so terrifying, people refuse to step foot inside. A thriving town turned ghostly graveyard. Once upon a time, the town of Wittenoom was full of life. Nestled in Western Australia, this small mining town was built in the 1940s and quickly became a booming hub. Families moved in, businesses flourished, and the town thrived. Why? Because Wittenoom was rich in blue asbestos. Back then, asbestos was seen as a miracle material, cheap, strong, and fireproof. It was used in everything: homes, insulation, even military equipment. And Wittenoom had one of the largest deposits in the world. By the 1950s, over 20,000 people had lived or worked in Wittenoom. The town had schools, a hospital, pubs, and even a cinema. On the surface, it looked like the perfect place to build a life. But beneath the surface, something deadly was lurking. The silent killer that destroyed Wittenoom. For years, workers in Wittenoom inhaled fine blue asbestos dust every single day. The dust covered their clothes, homes, and even their children. Nobody knew it at the time, but they were slowly poisoning themselves. By the 1960s, doctors started to notice something horrifying. Miners, workers, and even their families were developing mysterious lung diseases. People in their 30s and 40s, strong, healthy men, began dropping dead. The culprit? Mesothelioma. This aggressive cancer is caused by breathing in asbestos fibers. The worst part? It takes decades to appear. So by the time people realized what was happening, it was already too late. Wittenoom had become a death sentence. By the 1970s, the government tried to cover up the disaster. But the truth was out: Wittenoom was one of the most contaminated places on Earth. Residents were given one choice: leave, or risk dying. The government's desperate attempt to erase Wittenoom. By the 1980s, Wittenoom was a ghost town. Shops closed, homes were abandoned, and schools shut down. The once bustling community was silent. But the government wasn't done. They didn't just want people to leave, they wanted Wittenoom erased. Street signs were removed. Roads leading into town were blocked. Maps were changed to make Wittenoom disappear. It was as if the town had never existed. But it was too late. The damage had been done. Over 2,000 former residents died from asbestos-related diseases. Thousands more were left with lifelong health problems. The haunting of Wittenoom. With so much death, suffering, and loss, it's no surprise that many believe Wittenoom is cursed. People who visit the ruins of the town report strange experiences. Visitors hear voices in the wind. Some say they hear coughing and whispers, as if the spirits of the miners are still trapped there, gasping for air. Unexplained shadows move through the streets, even though nobody lives there. Photographs taken in the town sometimes show eerie figures in the background. And then there's the dreams. Many who have visited Wittenoom say that, after leaving, they have nightmares, visions of suffocating in the dust, or of ghostly figures standing at the edge of their bed, watching them sleep? Could it be the spirits of those who suffered there? Or is the town itself trying to warn people to stay away? The last resident who refused to leave. Wittenoom might be abandoned, but for one man, it was home. For years after the town was shut down, a man named Peter Long refused to leave. Despite knowing the risks, he lived alone in the ghost town, claiming that Wittenoom was his home, and he wouldn't let fear drive him away. He was the last resident. For decades, Peter lived in isolation, watching the town decay around him. But in 2022, the government officially declared Wittenoom an off-limits contaminated site. The last remaining buildings were demolished, and Peter was forced to leave. Now, the town is truly dead. Why is Wittenoom still dangerous today? You might be wondering, if nobody lives there, why does Wittenoom still matter? Because even though the town is abandoned, it's still deadly. The asbestos dust never left. It lingers in the air, on the ground, and in the ruins of the old buildings. Anyone who steps foot in Wittenoom is at risk. Yet, despite this, some tourists still sneak in. Why? Because humans are drawn to forbidden places. Some come for the thrill. Others come looking for ghosts. But the truth is, the only thing waiting for them in Wittenoom is danger. Even breathing in a tiny amount of asbestos fibers can be fatal decades later. So while ghost hunters might be excited to explore the ruins, the real horror isn't what they might see, it's what they might breathe in. Could this happen again? Wittenoom is a warning, a reminder of what happens when greed is put before human lives. But here's the terrifying part, this isn't just history. Right now, across the world, there are places just like Wittenoom, where industries continue to ignore the dangers for the sake of profit. Factories, power plants, and even modern mining towns may be exposing people to long-term dangers they won't realize until it's too late. Could another town suffer the same fate? Would you visit a ghost town like Wittenoom? Today, Wittenoom is nothing more than a scar on the Australian landscape. A place where people lived, loved, and died. A place that was erased from maps, but not from history. So what do you think? Would you visit a town like Wittenoom? Or do you believe some places should be left in the past, untouched and forgotten? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to hear about more terrifying ghost towns around the world, check out our next video, because some of them have stories even darker than this one.